So it wasn't because I was a small child and I loved teeth and I would wake up in the middle of the night as a 5-year-old hoping to see the tooth fairy. There was no romantic love for the industry.
No, me either.
It was a boy and then I got stuck. Welcome back to another episode of the Tooth or Dare podcast, Peeps, with your peep, Irene, joined by the lovely...
Hey. Oh, Victoria.
The lovely Hey.
Lovely
Vic. Doing a little op talking.
Op talk.
She's getting comfortable. We've done a few of these today. You can tell she's getting comfortable. You're leading this one.
I am leading this one. This episode is all about Irene.
Follow the leader,
Yes.
follow the leader.
Yes. We're going to explore Irene's dental history and background.
Sounded like a ChatGPT prompt.
Yeah.
We'll delve into
I
hope this podcast finds you well. We will be delving into the deep, dark depths of...
We're going to talk all about Irene and all the things she's done and why she's done them. And
for those of you wondering, this was not my idea.
We need to introduce you to some of your new followers. Some of them might not know what you do.
Yeah.
How you did it. Why you did it.
A lot's changed too. I think the last time we did this talk about myself was when I had a co-host before and we kind of introduced one another to the peeps. But you're right. We haven't really shared what's changed and what's happened.
You're more than just a face on Instagram.
Awkward pause. I rolled my eyes a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm in. Let's do it.
All right.
Let's talk about it on the professional side because you've got a bunch of DM questions and
So first, why did you get into dental?
It all started with a boy.
Oh, it always starts with a
story?
boy. I do know this story.
You do know the story. You heard it the first time around.
I've heard this story.
Yeah. It was an interesting... So I played tennis competitively as a small human. And then I went to university on a tennis scholarship. I went to FSU. My goal was to be a lawyer. And I graduated with a degree in political science, which... It's one of those things where I don't know if anyone's like listening knows someone or has gone to a D1 school for athletics, but it's really difficult to do things that require you to be in labs or on school premise because you travel quite a bit to other schools to play whatever the sport is. So when we were applying, my parents and I were applying and like got accepted and got my scholarship. They were like, well, what is easy to do on the road, and anything that really requires like a lot of reading and case study stuff. So poli-sci is very much that.
Yeah.
I did poli-sci, and both of my aunt and uncle are lawyers in Chicago. So I worked with them one summer. Aunt is a family lawyer, does primarily family law, divorce stuff. My uncle does M&A. And I was just like, I hate this. Like, I don't envision myself ever being a lawyer.
Didn't you shadow them once or something?
It was like, I was there for a whole summer. Yeah. And it was, I came back and I told my mom, like, I can't go to law school. And she's like, what? You're never going to get married. Like the guilt, the Romanian mom guilt. Let me tell you, it was just like, your life is going to fall apart. Yeah. Nothing ever good is going to happen.
Yeah. My dad's famous line is, you're going to be the cutest kid pumping gas. Yeah.
Like for my 6th birthday, they bought me the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Yeah.
Like that's what a 6-year-old, not a Barbie, not a toy, not a skipping rope. The Encyclopedia Britannica, which my mother still has in the basement. And she's like, when are you going to take these books? And I want them now. Like I really want them now. Anyways, so that was the thing. And then, so when I came home from school, I was kind of in this rut. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I met a boy. Whom was in school at the time, finishing a degree in health science and uncertain whether he wanted to go into medicine or dentistry, and was convinced to go into dentistry because of the like light work-life balance. Yes. Apparently there's a work-life balance in dentistry. Yeah, I'd like to know when that happens.
Is she in the room with us?
Yeah, never heard of her. What's her name? Never heard of her. So he decided to go into dentistry, and then I was like, cool, like I'll I'll do dental hygiene and then see
Yeah.
if I like it. I'll go back to school after. I would have had to take some additional prerequisites to get into dental school. That relationship didn't work out. 2 weeks before our wedding, he called it off because he was having a relationship with his assistant at the time, whom they're now married and have children and
Happily ever after.
happily ever after. And I got stuck with $50K in debt. So I just continued to work in order to pay for all of the things that the deposits for the wedding that never happened. So that is where dentistry. So it wasn't because I was a small child and I loved teeth and I would wake up in the middle of the night as a 5-year-old hoping to see the tooth fairy. There was no romantic love for the industry.
No, me either.
It was a boy, and then I got stuck. Yeah. And then I hated working for the better part of 6 to 7 years.
Makes sense.
Like I resented, I remember days laying in bed and thinking like, I just want to call. And I had called into sick to work so many times for knowing that I just didn't want to be there.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe some of those offices, I know that you've said before, some of the offices weren't the best either, which we all run into that, obviously. But yeah.
I felt like I didn't have control.
Yeah.
I worked in an office, which I loved because I loved the people there. I mean, I'm Romanian by origin, so a Romanian run practice in a very Romanian neighborhood.
Yeah.
She was my family dentist when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I worked there because I wanted to be part of that community. Like I felt like I was, doing a favor to my mom and dad who were also patients there. And like all of the immigrants that were coming in and like I spoke their language and I made them feel at ease.
Yeah.
But we had no perio protocol. There were no SOPs that were happening. There was like really sketchy stuff that was happening behind the scenes that I had no say in. And at one point I was just like, I can't do this anymore.
It's not how you want to practice.
No, like I felt horrible. And it sucks because there's like such a great potential and opportunity to do really great things. Mm-hmm. But when you're very financially oriented and you make decisions in this like scarcity mindset, like why would you ever cold sterilize anything, but B, disposables? And I would throw them away. And then I would get in trouble because, we reuse these here. Yep. Like, why are we reusing a 10-cent high volume suction?
Which should never happen.
Like, and so I left, I quit. And then it becomes this like ethical dilemma, which I'm already having by saying this aloud. But I think this happens in dentistry.
Yeah, it does.
It happens a lot.
Yeah.
And people stay silent and they don't report as we're supposed to. Yeah. Because of this, small
They're
world
scared.
mentality.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
That's
which
where it
kind
happened.
of leads into my next question of why did you open your own practice?
Yeah. I started teaching first.
Right. You did start,
So while I was there, while I was at that last practice, I was completing a adult learning certificate at George Brown College. Mm-hmm. And at the time, it was a series of courses that you had to take in a sequence.
Right. What made you want to do that?
I needed something else. Yeah. So I just felt like I don't want to work here. And I had started jumping around at that point in different specialties. So when I first graduated dental hygiene school, I was offered this position at this office for a couple of days a week. Mm-hmm. And then I also got a job working for Dr. Bud, the periodontist whom I refer to now. So I worked for him for a mat leave position. Took that mat leave, girl came back, and then she ended up having 2 more babies. She had twins the second time around. So I did an extended mat leave the second time around, but it was only a few days a week. Yeah. So, and it was right across the street from the dental hygiene school that I taught at. And I was like, how cool would it be to go back? I don't know why everyone seems to think that it's cool to teach at the school that you went to.
I don't know. It's kind of cool.
Kind of cool. But also you see it from a different perspective because you're the student and you're like, if I work here, I'm going to make this so much better. Like I'm going to change this evaluation and change this curriculum.
It's true.
And you never do because
I'm not going to make kids cry.
Yeah. No one's going to cry in my clinic. I'm not going to put anyone down or make them fear me. Yeah. No one's ever going to get an unsafe. That doesn't happen. Thanks. So I was like, I wanted to do that, but I needed credentials in order to do it. Teaching credentials. So like having a bachelor's of political science is helpful because you have the three little letters at the end of your name, but you don't have the knowledge.
Nope.
So even they're like, yeah, we'll give you a job. I was like, I'm not quite ready yet. I want to learn how to teach.
Yeah.
I want to learn about learners. I want to learn about learning styles. I want to learn how to write evaluations.
If you're going to do it, you want to do it right.
Yeah. And I had the time, right? Like I was young. So I did that. That took me about 2 years to complete, but I started teaching while I was completing it. I started with preclinic.
Yep.
I taught in the preclinic hand instrumentation semester 1, so typodonts.
Yep.
And then I went into clinic 2, where they're doing like, fluoride varnishes and they're working on partner care on each other. And then finally I was in clinic 3 and 4, so the graduating clinics, and then started teaching theory closer to the end. So I taught medical emergencies, oral hygiene instruction, dental hygiene theory, perio 1, and that's it.
Yeah.
4.
Good.
Not all at the same time, but 4 courses. And I loved it. I thought that was a really cool thing, but then I started doing more CE. Going to CE courses and seeing speakers up on the stage. I was like, wow, like I can teach in a classroom setting on a PowerPoint presentation created by someone 14 semesters ago, like taking someone else's, but I want to do my own thing. And that's
with new theories and new methods and
thought-provoking lectures to question the way that we're actually practicing in our operatories. And
what was your favorite course to teach?
I think oral hygiene instruction.
Yeah, that's fun.
I hated the assessment though. There was this like flip book that we would make the student. I was about to say kids, but make the students fill out. They would have to create this flip book, which was useful because they would take that flip book and bring it into clinic.
We had to do one too.
And that's what everyone has to do that because the curriculum is the curriculum,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
So we would make these flip books and it was their very first time using their critical thinking skills to take what they learned in perio, what they learned in DH theory, oral hygiene instruction, and now partner care. Because the first time they presented an oral hygiene instruction plan was to one another.
Yeah.
And it was kind of cool to like see their light bulb moments go up when like an embrasure space was larger and like, what do I use here? So I thought that was cool. A very fulfilling.
Yeah. That's why I liked working in the clinics. Because you see the connection that they make between their theory and then actually doing it in practice. And because I taught in 2nd and 3rd year clinical instruction, clinical setting. And so it's like different to see between the 2nd years and the 3rd years. It's really cool.
Yeah.
They just have that light bulb and they get it.
You hope.
And it wasn't for nothing.
You hope that they get the light bulb. Sometimes they don't get the light bulb, but eventually they do. Yeah. So I think that was my favorite. And preclinic 1 is when, you're counting your instruments for the very first time. They come in and we're opening all of the and putting the cassettes together.
Exciting.
It's so exciting. And they finally feel like they're about to achieve something.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very formative class.
For sure.
It's the first time that they feel like they're doing dental hygiene related and related stuff outside of the theoretical setting. And it really can form how they will perform for the rest of their time being a student. If you get a not so kind and adaptable instructor in preclinic, it can really put people down.
Oh yeah, it sure can.
And I see some of the products of that afterwards. Like I have followers on Instagram that were my students and I see them come to my lectures. Like at ODA, I had a bunch of students, former students, and this is like 10 years later. If they hated me, they probably wouldn't have showed up.
Yeah, that's true.
But, it's nice to be able to give someone a clean slate in a supportive way,
for sure,
instead of something that's a little bit more forceful.
For sure. So then you started speaking.
Yeah, I got a gig working for a company that was contracted by Invisalign, and I wasn't a speaker at all. I helped them manage their AGD approval. So in order for you to be able to provide CE in the United States, you need to have an AGD approval. And there's a whole protocol that you have to put together you have to submit for approval and they have to renew your approval. And basically you're taking all of the lectures and you're identifying that there's science-based and that there's no commercial support, or if there is, you disclose it. And you have to submit this every few years in order to keep your AGD approval. So that was what they had hired me for. As I was doing my teaching certificate, I then got a CDTP, a Certified Training and Development Professional, meaning that I was able to evaluate similar to curriculum, but course content, and then put together these packages, which in dentistry is called AGD. So they had hired me for that, helped them develop a lecture, and then they hired me as kind of a supportive trainer.
Okay.
I would go to these Invisalign courses and I'd help, organize the trays and open the boxes and, the speaker would do the thing and I'd be there, pumping or like a PVS impression material into trays and showing people like the hands-on components. And at one point,
the Vanna
White, showing people how to put on attachments. I had done ortho at this time too, showing them how to do attachments and how to polish attachments. And at one point, the speaker's flight got canceled and they had no one to deliver this lecture. And then there's me, like baby Irene.
I'm just a girl.
And I'm like, and they're like, well, you know the lecture because you used it to submit it for our AGD approval.
Yeah.
And I've heard it a million times at this point. So they put me up on this podium and I stood behind the podium. I have a photo of my very first day in my blazer with my hair pinned
up on
back.
The screen?
Yeah, side shuffle.
Yeah.
I stood behind this Marriott marquee podium the entire lecture. 3 hours long. Oh. I had written notes. I was prepared. Yeah. I was probably the most boring speaker that ever existed on the planet.
Aww.
And I just stood there and I was like, I think that was great.
Yeah.
And the other people in the audience, like literally there was someone falling asleep on the front row.
Crickets.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it was great.
I mean, it was fine. They were, I was willing to learn and I was moldable.
Yeah, for sure.
So I worked for that company for a better part of almost 3 years.
So you started speaking with them
I
after
started
that.
They turned me into one of their lecturers. I started conducting hygiene study clubs. I was part of the Align hygiene faculty. And then things kind of went in a weird direction.
Yeah.
We can link the episode to the weird direction below. Something kind of strange happened and it was like cold turkey. I got cut.
Yeah. Cut from the team.
I got cut from the team. Yeah. A lot of people got cut from the team. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's the corporate world, the silent Irish goodbye.
Yeah.
You're not an official employee.
Yeah.
There's no skin on their game.
True.
And so I was pretty upset. That was in 2017. I was pretty upset. I was like, I worked so hard to get to this point.
For sure.
I'd put on a lot of miles on my suitcase. Like I was on the road every week. And in the end, to just see you later.
Yeah. It feels like it's not worth it. Like, what was it for?
What was all of it for? Yeah. So I said, forget it. I'm going to do it myself.
Yep.
I'm going to create my own lectures. I'm going to submit my own proposals and hopefully, and that's the thing with, I spoke at some of the large conferences while I worked for them, Chicago, Midwinter, Greater New York, Hinman, Yankee. But because you're under a corporate umbrella, you don't get scouted by the same scouts. Yeah. So I was basically starting all over again from zero, not with no one knowing who I was, because at the time it was like a lecture is an Align lecture.
Yeah.
It was never an Irene lecture.
Yeah.
So some of these people had no idea who I even was.
Wow.
So I basically started from scratch in 2017. I was like, well, what do I feel passionate about? My very first lecture was a caries management, Canberra prevention lecture before I was a restorative hygienist. So I didn't have any of the resin infiltration components to it, but it was like, what should we be looking out for as hygienists, looking out for caries related things?
How do we make it better?
How do we make dental hygiene great again?
Yes. Purple hats.
Purple hats. That was a joke from our chat last night. I'm like, I think that's too soon.
Yeah.
So that was the speaking
and
side.
And now you speak all the time.
I do. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. A lot of traveling.
It's not even the travel part that's a lot. I mean, I enjoy it now because I get to do more fun stuff.
Right. You make an effort.
I resented it for a while because I would be flying in, flying out, and not seeing anything other than the inside of a hotel room in order to, cut costs.
Yeah.
And, usually the way that it works on the speaking side is someone will pay for your honorarium, whether it's coming from the organization or whether it's coming from a company that's sponsoring you, or split in between. On the travel side, sometimes they'll pay for your flight. Sometimes they'll just give you a flat rate and they'll say, you got $2,000 for travel.
Yeah.
And that might mean Uber rides, train rides,
You make it work.
flights, hotels.
Yeah.
So like there have been times where they've given me a flat rate of like $1,500 for travel, not realizing that like I'm coming from Canada.
Yeah. All the flights are expensive.
Flights are expensive leaving Canada. It's not like I can take a Sprint flight from Ohio to Buffalo for $200. Like it's considered an international flight right away.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah. And then I'm paying out of pocket a little bit, or I'm taking from my honorarium to put it towards travel in order to kind of make it happen. So at first I was like, you know what, I'm going to squeeze this out as best as I can. Yeah. But now I'm like, you know what, like I want to go and do something. So I'm going to Chicago midwinter coming up. I booked tickets to the symphony.
Exactly. You got to live your life as well,
right?
And may as well see things.
I was in Oklahoma.
Things.
I booked a bike tour.
Yeah.
Like you got to like be your own human being when you go to some of these places too. Yeah. Especially when you're speaking for 6 or 7 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. You need something for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I resented it for a while, but finally now I feel like I'm in a good place. I'm saying yes to the things that I want to say yes to, working with the companies that I want to work with that respect our time. Like I'm really excited that I get to do stuff with Spear. There's always been, goals to work with an organization that really highly values clinical content.
Yes. Quality clinical content.
High quality clinical content.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So then you opened your practice.
Yeah.
What a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why did you want to open your own practice?
Yeah. The office that I worked in full time before I left, was considered or marketed as a holistic dental practice. And there were elements of it that were holistic, but not completely.
Yeah.
And she ran a machine, like lots of clinicians, multiple, like 3 or 4 associates, multiple restorative hygienists. Wow. So I think there was like 5 or 6 restorative hygienists, 2 of us that were not restorative at the time.
Yeah.
And it was this like I wanted better systems. We were all doing different things. Like Margaret in one room had one piece of equipment that she never shared with anybody, that no one got to use. She would like always be the one to get the new instruments. And then I got the hand-me-downs because I was the most recent hire. Yeah. Someone in another room was doing one thing one way. And
Didn't you work in a basement in that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like no window.
Yeah.
I couldn't even sit at 12 o'clock. And my computer was like attached to the wall and it was like falling off.
So awful.
At one point I would have to have my knee under the keyboard bracket.
Yeah.
Because if I typed, I was afraid that it was going to pull the drywall anchors out of the wall.
Oh no.
Yeah. We've all had a moment like that, right? Like, I wanted a different stool, but I couldn't get one because it was actually too big to fit in the room. Yeah. It was like do-si-doing to try and get around. So I wanted a better like working environment, one that I felt comfortable in, and also a calibration among all of us because I was very focused. I was still teaching at the time.
Yeah.
So I was very focused in perio, and I'm teaching all these things to my students in clinic and pre-clinic. I'm encouraging them to write goals, and I'm encouraging to put treatment plans together. And then what am I doing in clinical practice?
Yeah.
I'm not practicing what I preach because I don't have someone supporting me.
Yep. The flexibility or the say.
Not even this flexibility, just getting it.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm done. I can't ethically, in my mind, continue to teach, continue to lecture. I felt like a phony. I really did.
Yeah.
I felt like I was pretending to be this person. And at that point, I think I only had like 5,000 or 6,000 followers.
Right.
at that point, I felt like I was pretending to be this person preaching all of these things that we should be doing.
Yeah.
When in the reality, I would be in my operatory, like drowning in regret.
Yeah.
That I couldn't change anything.
Yeah. Yeah. That's rough. That's awful.
Yeah.
And let alone like the stress of that office would have gotten to you too, you know?
Yeah,
like
horrible.
that takes such a toll on your health. And
they would like put perio patients in. They would move my maintenance patients out of my column into somebody else's column, and then put perio patients in my column, because I was the fixer. Like I was the one that had all of the answers.
People
so like,
leave all the calculus for you.
Basically, but the way that they positioned it was that it was an internal referral to our perio specialist, because Irene worked in perio. She teaches perio.
Yeah.
She does all these things. But in the end, it was just like somebody else's burnished calculus.
Yeah. 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 So then you started to plan.
I planned it. I quit my job. So I started, I at that point was like, I can't continue to do this and also put together these systems and protocols and things in place for the practice that I want, that I've never worked in before.
Yeah.
I've never worked in a place that had all of these things all in one place, bits and pieces of it.
Yeah.
So I took bits and pieces of all of the, 17 years now, but at the time it had been, 17 minus 4, like 13-ish, 12-ish years of practice, and putting it all into one place.
Yep.
So I thought, okay, it's going to take me about a year to build a practice. I found a contractor. So I found a few. I interviewed 4 contractors on the same day at the same time. It was the worst
like
planning.
A panel.
It was literally
interview.
Like I was on a date.
Oh.
And they were all just like walking through and in, and I felt so awkward.
Yeah.
But the only one that was like unfazed by it, like he was my guy, Dave.
Yeah.
So I hired a real estate agent who focuses on commercial. I had 3 different spaces that I liked. The one that we're sitting in is the most expensive of the 3.
Of course it is.
But it was also brand new. So like, I didn't have to deal with any plumbing problems, electrical. There was no plumbing. There were no pipes. There was
blank
no
slate.
Completely concrete slate, which posed a lot of problems. There was another like house kind of looking one, but that one my dad's a civil engineer and an architect. So he came to these places with me. He's like, this one's going to give you electrical problems, especially with like dental equipment and stuff and plumbing issues. He's like, but it was cheaper, like by the square foot, it was cheaper. And then there was another one that was like kind of in the middle, but there was no room to grow. So I picked this one, and then I brought the real estate agent, not really, contractors in here.
Yes.
And then I just asked them for what their vision was. And then I found Dave, and Dave was like, okay, cool. This is how much it's going to cost you, which I know is one of your questions.
Yep.
And then you need a designer. So at that point I was like, a designer was going to cost me about $200,000 for the project. So I decided I was going to do it myself. So I was like, how much am I making as a dental hygienist? At the time I was probably making about $100K a year.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to cut this loss. It's going to cost me $200 to hire someone, or $100 for me as a loss.
Yep.
And I have to learn how to use AutoCAD, which I learned.
Yep.
So I quit my job, and then I became my own designer.
Nice. That's awesome. And I mean, no one's going to design it the way you want it.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of things that I would change now, but you don't know what you don't know until you know it.
Exactly.
So but I signed the lease in 2018. I got a commercial lawyer to negotiate the lease, which I strongly recommend everyone does. His name is Mark. If anyone needs a guy, I got a guy. But he negotiated terms that I didn't even know were going to matter until they mattered.
Right.
Like the fixturing period, the construction period time. He negotiated a 6-month fixturing period instead of a 3-month fixturing period. I mean, and it happened to be during COVID.
Yeah.
But you have to start paying rent at some point, and if you're not making any money, it's a lot of rent.
Yeah.
So he negotiated a longer fixturing period. He negotiated a lot of the contract work that needed to be brought, the utilities that needed to be brought in, that the landlord pays. So my office is a structural unit, meaning all of the concrete pillars are holding up this unit, this building above us. The concrete floors are also 3 feet deep.
Oh.
So they are
They're solid.
a water prevention or a flood prevention for the basement of the building.
Yeah.
So all of the utilities required core drilling. So these big fancy machines that course through 3 feet worth of concrete, and the floor has rebar in it everywhere. So we needed to get these x-rays done of the floors in order for us to know where we could core drill, where the chairs could go. So these chairs could never move. They can't go anywhere else.
That's it.
And the one in the back room is on an angle because of that, because we had rebar going in so many different directions.
Wow.
Have you ever watched like one of those spy movies where the lasers are going and you have to like, you're doing that?
Yeah.
That's basically what they had to do to figure out exactly where each one of those holes had to be. And then when Patterson built my office, they had to custom make these like intricate, what do they call them? It's with a C, or wires and things go through it.
Oh.
Conduits.
Yep.
Custom conduits in order for them to be fireproof, waterproof, life-proof,
Irene proof.
Irene proof. Yeah. So that alone, core drilling and the x-rays of the floor, was almost $250,000. If he hadn't negotiated bringing and the term was so simple, it was like delivering utilities to the site of the source. It was like something so simple that if he hadn't worded that in, then I would have been stuck with an additional $250K worth of expenses. So silly small things.
Yeah. Definitely worth it then.
Yeah.
For sure.
And when they were x-raying the floors, they found in the back corner where my stair is that there's a holding tank, a water holding tank, a runoff holding tank owned by the city.
Right.
That we are not allowed to core drill in. We're not allowed to have electrical or plumbing in. And it required engineering drawings and like inspections from the city to come in. And that alone delayed us. So the lawyer negotiated the fixturing period to be commenced on the conclusion of the landlord's work. The landlord's work was delayed 9 months. So had it not been at the conclusion of the landlord's work, I would have already been paying rent and not even into my construction yet.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So if your aunt or your uncle is a real estate agent and they sell houses in Markham, they're not the person that should be getting you your unit for commercial.
No.
If your like Aunt Susie is a lawyer down the street in family law, she should also not be the one negotiating your contract and your lease agreement for your commercial space.
No, that's...
And you know how many people were like, oh, I know someone, like they'll do it for cheap. And I'm like, I'm not looking for cheap.
No.
I'm looking for...
You want it done properly.
Point.
Yeah. Yeah. So then COVID hit.
Yeah. So then COVID hit. So then everything started to be slowly delayed. Luckily for me, all our materials were purchased. So cost of labor went up significantly, but so did like just general wood and pipes and drywall, everything. All of that stuff went up. But luckily for us, we had already bought it all.
That's awesome.
And I'd already secured my contractor. Like everything was ready to go. We started to see delays in the tech.
Chairs, yeah.
Yeah, so these chairs are Sirona chairs from Germany. So they were imported from Germany. They were on a ship and the ship got quarantined. That was the last delay.
Yeah.
The first delay with them was microchips.
Yeah.
So we started to see a lot of like the technology stuff was delayed because of the microchips that were produced in Asia.
Yeah.
That couldn't get sent to Germany. So we were delayed another 9 months in COVID related things. Yeah. Then finally everything was ready. Yeah. And opening day, March, something shows up and I can't open because then we got shut down because of our guideline restrictions. So I can't, but I still came to work. I did COVID all wrong. I came to work every day. I came to an empty office and I putzed around. I cleaned.
Yeah.
I mopped the floors every day.
But you had a
for no
nice,
reason.
Shiny new office.
Yeah.
You know, you wanted to be here.
I would come here and I'd walk around and I'd see and I'd wipe and I'd clean and I would spend like 10 hours a day here, you know, dealing with open dental and putting in notes and things. But I did that for the better part of 4 months.
Which is probably beneficial because you wouldn't get any of those things done while you're running the office, you know, while it's open.
I worked 7 days a week. We opened, as soon as the doors opened, I worked Monday to Sunday. Saturday and Sundays were 8 to 2. Yeah. And then my I had Mondays off. So the office was closed on Mondays originally.
Yeah.
But I walked the streets and knocked on the doors of the business owners, and that's how I got patients. I made friends with the business owners.
So smart.
So, we're all struggling at the same time.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of a thing that happened. I hired my first employee her name was Julie. She lived down the street and she was walking by with her baby. And she saw me in here sitting at the front desk, knocked on the window, and I let her in. We were, 6 feet apart wearing masks. Yep. And she was like, "Hi, my name is Julie. I'm on mat leave. I'm a receptionist and an office manager. And I don't like the office that I work in. And I don't want to go back after mat leave. Can I work here?" And I was just like, "Sure." I'm like, "I don't have any employees and I'm not sure when I'm opening yet." Yeah. And she's like, "Well," her last office was a startup. So she helped them. And I was like, "I don't know anything about dental codes." Yeah. And she's like, "I do." So she started working for me part-time. She'd bring her baby in. Aww. It was the cutest little thing. She now lives in Costa Rica. But she came in and she started working for me part-time while she was on mat leave. Wow. And I would take her daughter for walks around the block while she would be putting in ODA codes and ODHA codes and figuring out all of our systems. Yeah. Our Open Dental still has a preset called Julie's Favorites, and it's the one that I use. So
that's so awesome.
Yeah. And then there was Naomi. So after Julie worked here, then there's Naomi, who was a dental hygienist, who was in dental hygiene school here from Alberta, was an office manager, treatment coordinator, and receptionist. She worked for me part-time while she was in dental hygiene school.
That's awesome.
I've lost a lot of employees to going back to school.
Right. You make it look so easy.
Maybe. Yeah. I've lost a lot, either to dental hygiene or to going back to be dentists.
But that's good, though. You promote an environment of continuing your education and learning and everything, right? So that's good.
Yeah.
So end all and be all.
How much? Over $1 million, 1.3, 1.4, I'd say, all in now.
Yeah.
So with a third op going in, this op is also considered a surgical op, so it's got more bells and whistles. Yeah. But leaseholds, the building and the building of the office and stuff, I think we were at $560K. Equipment was another 500 plus.
Yeah.
And then you need a float. You need an operating float, which every month is anywhere between $100,000 to $200,000. It needs to be in the bank.
You got to pay people.
You got to pay people overhead. That's the highest percentage of your overhead is your salaries.
Yeah.
So I think you should be prepared, and you need a personal injection. So I talked about this before with startup costs. Whenever you go to a bank to get a loan, they want to know, as a hygienist. For dentists is different. A dentist can go in and they will hand them $2 million.
No problem.
Without needing a personal injection, without needing to secure anything, just easy. But for a hygienist, because you're not technically the highest paid provider, you need to show some skin, right? Skin in the game. Yeah. So I'd secured my house to the loan. I had about $100,000 in a personal injection of money in a bank, liquid, not invested. Wow. Not in an investment account, literally cash in the bank that they just want to see that is there. They
don't make it easy.
They don't. No. I got declined so many times before I actually got the loan. And then, luckily it happened as it happened because interest rates now are crazy. But for something like this, you're at least, and now it's probably close to 1.5.
Probably, yeah. Everything is so expensive now. It's gone up a lot.
I had a dentist knock on the door once.
Really?
Who lives close by.
Yeah.
And is it gave me his cards, if you ever want to sell your office.
Wow.
Cash deal, I will buy it from you.
Wow.
He's he works far from home. He's I would in a heartbeat.
Wow. It's a beautiful office. It's great.
How much? I'm sure, $5 million, please.
It really is a great
no
office.
Evaluation.
You did a great job.
It'd be interesting because people buy houses these days with no conditions, cash deals. But in dentistry, that doesn't happen, right? No. They need to look at your charts and figure it out. But it'd be interesting if that model happened in dentistry where people just bought because they wanted to buy.
Yeah, it would be very interesting.
No conditions, no appraisal, no nothing. Just give me the $5 million and
a Tooth Life studio is not for sale.
No. For $5 million, I'd sell it.
Yeah.
Right?
That I would too. But
we also have Taylor Swift tickets that are worth $14,000 and we're not selling them.
I was just going to say, you know how many Taylor Swift concerts we can go to with that?
Like, oh, now it's a we thing, right? We're going. Now we're going.
Yeah.
Any other follow-ups, or are we done for this episode?
I think that was it. You hit every point.
We didn't even talk about social media at all.
We didn't. That's for another day.
We'll do one for Alexandra needs to be part of the social media discussion.
That'll be another one for another day.
All right.
Yeah, another topic.
Ask your questions in the pinned post on Instagram or send us a DM and then we will do that.
We'll answer them as they come in.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right. Until next time. Peace out, peeps.
Bye.
Bye.